Hi everybody, you're going to be using this video to help you understand the connection between the Wizard of Oz and the populist movement. We're going to be looking at that through the term of allegory. So I'm going to explain what that means on the next slide, but this is going to help you write an assignment on how the Wizard of Oz represents populism in the late 1800s. So let's head on. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was written by Frank L. Baum, and many people believe that this was an allegory, his work. And an allegory is when devices such as characters or events are used to represent or symbolize ideas and concepts. So many people believe that basically the whole book of The Wizard of Oz was an allegory for the populist time period. So let's see what that means. Alright, so what we're going to go through in this lesson is different people, institutions, objects, places in the time period during the populist movement, and compare and see how they fit in with the Wizard of Oz and the characters and places and situations in the book. So let's start with the Midwestern farmers. Now these farmers, one place in particular we're focusing on and is a part of the book itself is Kansas. Kansas farmers were seen as ignorant, irrational. They were literally seeing things crumble right before their eyes, and they didn't really have any way to change it, and they couldn't figure out quite how to do so. So who represents them in the movie? And they're represented by the Scarecrow, who basically just represents the common farmer. He was really seen as naive, but ultimately he was wise. He just didn't necessarily know how to solve the problems. He was always honest, and he supported Dorothy throughout the movie. And as we'll see a little bit later on, Dorothy can symbolize a couple different things, but one of the things she symbolizes is the populist movement itself. So these farmers are supporting the populist movement. Alright, next we have the urban industrial workers, and who are they in the movie? Like a machine, seen as incapable of love, says I only had a heart if I only had a heart, often seen as rusted in the beginning, similar condition to a laborer or a worker during the Depression of the 1890s. Who are they in the movie? And in the book, they're represented by the Tin Man, who was initially rusty when they found him, and then kind of throughout the movie changed his appearance, wasn't as rusty, or in the book as well. And he symbolized the people that were unemployed because of all this new technology that was coming out, factories making it easier to produce goods, but also because of the economic issues where people were losing their jobs because there just simply was an economic crisis. Alright, the next one is William Jennings Bryan. One of the things that's characterized who he's portrayed by in the movie is a loud roar, protecting smaller beasts in a small old forest. He roared on about his beliefs and what should be done with currency issues, never really got his bite in when he lost presidential elections, and he gained courage by traveling throughout the country. Now he's represented by the Cowardly Lion. He never actually won a presidential election, even though he ran 4 times. He had a lot of really strong words, but nothing really to follow them through. And even though he spoke for the common people, he didn't actually support populism. So he's kind of this big figure, but doesn't really kind of follow through on it. Just like you might think of a lion. He's a really big figure, probably should be scary and powerful, but in the movie he's very cowardly. So kind of the same thing in real life. Alright, so what represents the gold standard in the book or the movie? People are headed to the city of Oz. The measurement of weight in gold is one of the things how basically money was valued at the time. Gold supported the value of money. So if there wasn't any gold or gold reduced in value, then money reduced in value. So people were worried about that. Now gold ultimately, or money in general, kind of leads to whoever's in charge. So what does that all mean? So in the movie, gold is represented by the yellow brick road. Again, money is a major issue. People felt that there wasn't enough gold to back up the value of money, which means that the money that they're paying wouldn't be worth as much, so then they'd have to pay more of it for a good or a service, whatever they're buying. So they preferred using more than one type of metal, possibly using silver as the basis instead of gold to back the value of money. So while we're on the topic of money, what about banks? Who do they get represented by in the movie? Banks could vary the amount of money in circulation based on gold and the lending activity that occurred as a result. So banks, remember, they're the ones that hold the money. So if they're not going to put as much out into circulation, which means out into our hands, then they're the ones controlling how much it's worth. So they often would be able to foreclose on loans as well, which means that people were put out of business, they might have lost their farms, and then the banks can actually acquire those businesses or land a lot cheaper than they would if they had to buy it for the real value from people. So the banks are represented by the Wicked Witch of the East, because again, these banker bosses are controlling businesses and manufacturing, and as a result, the common person, the common worker, suffers, and even the common farmer who might lose their farm as a result of losing their loan. So in the movie, the Wicked Witch represents these banks because she's holding the Munchkins essentially hostage because they're forced to work for her, just as people are forced to deal with these banks and kind of go with whatever the bank end up doing. Alright, so President William McKinley, who represents him in the movie? This person is a man who is looked on as very powerful and big, says, "Usually I will not even see my subject, and so they believe I am something terrible." So maybe he's hiding behind something. So in the movie, he's represented by the Wizard of Oz himself. The Wizard of Oz is supposed to be this great, powerful being, has all these powers that can help you, and in reality, he's just an everyday person like you and me. And that's essentially what they're saying that the president was. He's just a common person like everybody else. So the last one is what we're going to call the everyman, so the everyday common person. Who represents them in the movie? And in the movie, this person went along with these other characters, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and in the book she wore silver shoes. They're changed to ruby shoes in the movie. She landed on the Wicked Witch of the East, kind of crushing that, and remember the Wicked Witch of the East was the banks, and she meets challenges through her own hard work, personality, and physical wit. So now in the book and the movie, the everyday common person is really represented by Dorothy. She represents the American people. She also represents the farmers, particularly in Kansas. Remember, that's where her character's from. And she can also represent the populist movement, the ones that are trying to change these problems that are plaguing these farmers. Alright, so this last slide is really a question that I want you to think about to help you out with your assignment. And it's making connections. So how do these characters that we've talked about from this book, The Wizard of Oz, and the movie, symbolize the issues of populism? So keep that in mind and make sure to do the homework assignment underneath of this. Have a great day. Let me know if you've got any questions. Happy to work on the assignment with you.